Hello and welcome to episode 182 of First Geek 411. It is a very special episode with some very special guests, and we're excited that everyone can be here with us today, tonight, whenever it is that you are listening. With me, as always, my best man, Chris Nicolay. Chris, how you doing today?
Hello, and I am tired. That's about it.
Just a little bit north of that, Shanine, how you doing?
Not too bad.
And then partying on the West Coast, Emma, how you doing?
Driving in this cold day of 70 degrees and partially cloudy. Cold.
Living your best life.
Yeah.
And then joining us, the Orange Mailman, Darrin. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you, Cameron?
Doing great. And then Nerd Chapel, Eric, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, super excited. We're going to get to know Darrin and Eric a little bit later on, but they are some of the authors for the Devo book, Fantastic 42. So looking forward to that a bit later on. This week, Darrin, I'm going to promote what you've been up to a major topic. We got Gen Con. We got The Witcher Season 2. We got Doctor Who, Bebop, and then our top 3 fictional characters that have taught us spiritual lessons. Listeners, as always, you can find us as One Geek 411 on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also join our Discord server if you want to chat with us between shows, or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can check out our website, onegeek411.com. Watch live, twitch.tv/onegeek411, 6:45 Mountain Time, Monday nights. And then you can find the videos over on our YouTube. You can also rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And if you're looking for some sweet One Geek 411 merch, you can find that on our Redbubble store. So with that, Darrin and Eric, let's get to know y'all a little bit more. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourselves and some of the things that you are geeky about? And if Darrin, you want to go first, since you're first alphabetically, but
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for having us on. My name is Darrin, and I am a mailman. I've worked for the post office for 26 years. I've been married for 26 years. Some things that I'm geeky about. I'm geeky about the Bible, the color orange, and so hence I am the Orange Mailman. So that's just a nickname my wife made up for me one time, and it just kind of stuck. I'm nerdy about board games. Cameron was asking about some of the board games that I like. I really love strategy in board games. I love being able to out strategize an opponent or a group of people. So please pray for me in that. But I also like the social aspect of it. You get to meet people, and like Settlers of Catan is just, it's not a super strategic game, but it's a fun game because you're trading with people, you're talking with people, and you're getting to know them. And one thing kind of cool that's happened is our gaming group has kind of just spread and meeting people through the game Dominion. My wife loves the game Dominion. And so Eric mentioned beforehand that one day somebody just said, we need to have a tournament. We need to all be together playing Dominion in some kind of tournament. And so I figured out a way to do a Dominion tournament. My friend has a huge house. He hosts it and his wife hostess it. And we have like 30 or more people show up to this Dominion tournament. And it's a lot of fun. And I've also gotten to love co-op games too, working with other people to strategize and beat a game mechanic. So Pandemic, Sentinels of the Multiverse. So I got a big love for board games. I also get geeky about peanut butter. I celebrate National Peanut Butter Day on January 24th every year. I love Christmas, 89 days until Christmas. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and I love reading. Yeah, I read some of your bios, so I'm doing this for points.
Yeah, just making sure you hit something from everyone.
Yeah. I also love the comics, not comic books, but the funnies. I read the funnies religiously. So those are some of the things I'm geeky about, and I'll pass it on to Eric now.
Well, hi, I'm Eric. I started Nerd Chapel, so that's a fun thing. I am geeky and nerdy about Jesus. I've been following Jesus since I was a wee lad, but I'm also very nerdy and geeky about a variety of things. I go swing dancing 2 or 3 times a month, and I never thought I'd be a swing dancer. And
West Coast swing or East Coast swing?
I do East Coast. I have had some West Coast lessons. I just have not been able to keep up with it as much as East Coast. So I love swing dancing. I thoroughly enjoy board games as much as Darrin Bow. So Unmatched, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Dominion. I even run a games club at a school that I'm a substitute teacher. And so on Wednesdays, I stay after school and run a games club. And we started it for the new year last Wednesday, and 21 kids came, which was a lot and very exciting. 18 of them jumped into D&D campaigns or other RPG campaigns, so that was exciting.
Awesome.
I let the kids kind of take their own leadership of that. And I'm also nerdy about superheroes, science fiction. My mom got me started in my nerdiness through Godzilla movies when I was about 5 or 6, and introduced me to some of the traditional sci-fi movies of the 50s and got me into that. And of course, I grew up watching G.I. Joe and Mask and enjoying all sorts of science fiction and superhero stuff through all of that. I'm also a cosplayer. I don't make my cosplays. I'm more of the guy who will order them or figure something out where I can just buy a few things and put them together.
Support the small businesses.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I've got an Aragorn in Gondor uniform cosplay that I had at Gen Con as my very first convention with it. I've got for those who love the Lantern Corps version or section of the DC universe, I've got a Blue Lantern cosplay. Although it has been discovered that when they made my costume, they put the symbol upside down, so that's a bit of a frustration. So yeah, movies, especially adventure and superhero movies. And let's see. Those are probably the big ones. Board games, like I said. So
Very broad, just like us.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's our kind of geek right there. Well, for both of you. So let's go ahead and segue from that into what we've been up to this past week. Like I said, I'm promoting Darrin's to a major topic just because I'm excited. But Darrin, what have you been up to?
Well, I was at Gen Con.
I'm not remotely jealous.
Yeah,
and I was there too. It was fun.
Yeah, we were both able to go, and it was kind of cool because we were all disappointed when a lot of events were canceled in 2020, and Gen Con was one of them. And so to be back at Gen Con after 2 years was really exciting. And so there were a lot of things, but I did want to highlight one thing because I was a little disappointed because my group, the Heroscapers, that's my clan, that's my tribe. I hang with them. I play Heroscape for all Friday, all Saturday, and part of Thursday. And they said that they weren't going to be there. They said that with the COVID restrictions, they weren't sure if they were going to comply. So I'm like, oh man, what am I going to do? I want to go to Gen Con, but what am I going to do? So my wife says, hey, there's this group called Fight in the Skies Gaming Group, and they want GMs. They're saying a lot of their GMs aren't going to show up. Please GM for us. You can run whatever you want. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of a good idea. And so I emailed Shauna Bourne, and she's like, yeah, we just want people to run games, run whatever you want. And I said, well, I have a Kickstarter that I backed 3.5 years ago. It was fulfilled this past spring and summer. I have it. Nobody else has it. So Street Fighter the board game, the miniatures game, I had it at Gen Con, 35,000 people, and I'm the only one that had it. And it was so much fun. Eric was in my first session.
Yep, it was
And
fun.
people are walking by going, oh, wow, where can I get this? They're Googling, when is this going to be available in stores? Are you the creator? No, I'm not the creator. Do you work for the company? No, I don't work for the company. And I just love this game. And so people are really getting into it. They're doing the Hadouken and all this stuff. And there was a film crew. Did you see that, Eric?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, in the session that Eric was in, there was a film crew, and they put the camera way up high so they could see down. So look at some of the highlights. So anyway, here's a couple of the minis so that the viewers at home can see. They did such a beautiful job with them. There's E Honda and Chun-Li. But anyway, that was a lot of fun. And then pre and post con gaming, I picked up a copy of Dune Imperium at
Good game.
a store just down the street from the hotel where I was at, because someone in Refried Gamer said that they'd love to play Dune Imperium. And I'm really looking forward to the movie in about a month. And I just thought that would be so cool to be able to learn it. So not at Gen Con, but at my hotel, we worked through it. And I tell you what, there's a reason why Dune Imperium is the latest game hotness.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is a solid game. So it was a lot of fun just learning that on my own and seeing what the geekiness on that is about. So Gen Con. Anyway, someone else can go about what they've been up to now.
Eric, what all have you been up to?
Well, this in the last week after Gen Con, which Gen Con was amazing. We had our books at it, so that was fun. Saturday, I went into Grand Rapids, Michigan. I live about 30 minutes from there, or 30 miles. And every year, or now every couple of years, Grand Rapids hosts a huge, ginormous art competition called Art Prize. And they have normally around 1,500 pieces of art, ranging from small little prints up to giant outdoor statues and everything in between. And so I spent an entire afternoon just walking around and exploring all that there was and seeing off. It's crazy. There's a large city, I think it's Dallas in Texas, actually bought the rights to be able to use the name Art Prize, but originated in Grand Rapids. And there was someone who had a bunch of pictures that they had taken. They did photography all around the world with people in their countries, and they held all of them holding a white line, a white rope, and they said, we're all connected. And that was the point. So they had these huge photos all over the city just of that. And there was a very cool replica of an old huge sail ship with cannons and ginormous sails. And it wasn't life-size by any means. It was, smaller, but it was so detailed and so well done. It was very cool. Then, like a lot of other people, the last week I've been watching Star Wars Visions. The Ninth Jedi is my favorite episode in it, and I won't spoil anything, but it was really good.
I think it's my wife's
so I've
favorite
been
episode.
jumping on those bandwagons lately.
I think we'll have some more Star Wars Vision talk. So I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's favorite episode that's seen it. So,
Cool.
Emma, what about you?
Let's see. Thursday we had picture lock for our first project. So Darrin and Eric, I'm a graduate student in film production, for context. And so that basically just means that we had to have our final edits in for this first project that we were working on. So that, like, most of last week I was sitting down in a bunker somewhere just editing my brains out. But then that was finally, we got it like turned in on Thursday at like 5 p.m. So now it's just like all the coloring and sound and stuff, which means that I'm free of that project. But once I finished that, I finally had some time to sort of get back into video games a little bit and watch some Netflix. So I got to play some more Uncharted 4, which was nice. And I started watching Downton Abbey finally after such a very long time. So that's been my week.
How far are you in Uncharted 4?
I'm getting near the end, I think. Mrafe has Sam. And we're in the we've found the colony, the pirate colony. And then like after that, Rafe got Sam. So
Well, if it's Uncharted, how do you know you're toward the end? I mean, it could be
because I've watched a Let's Play for this game before. So like I know the story of this. It's just like I've forgotten most of it, but I'm pretty sure I'm near the end. But you're right. It could keep going on and on and on and on and on if we really wanted it to, right?
I've made my stance on puns well known.
Oh, JK, we're actually going to Southern America now. Like,
oh, and hey, we're teleporting to the moon because that's Uncharted.
Yeah. So,
Shanine, what have you been up to?
Okay, well, we were pleasantly surprised this week to find out that Final Space had a whole bunch of new episodes on Netflix.
What is Final Space? I'd not heard of
Final-
this, let alone that it
haven't
has
heard
a,
of
a
Final
season
Space?
3.
Okay, you're gonna want to watch it.
it's great.
It is like an animated show for adults, and it's in space, and it's
fabulous.
hilarious.
It deserves so much love.
I just, it's amazing. David Tennant voices.
Never heard of him.
Don't know who he is.
That
Now,
guy.
who's that?
And Glenn from The Walking Dead. And yeah, there's a lot of big actors doing voices in it, and it's adorable, and it makes you feel things right when you don't think you're going to be feeling anything, but it's mostly just really hilarious and super recommend. So yeah, the last time I checked, they hadn't even announced if there was going to be a next season, and then it just pops up that there's new episodes. So we're super excited. So we've been going through that, and got to start a kind of new IRL D&D campaign. My husband is DMing it, and we had tried to start it with a different group, and we lasted like 3 sessions. We're gonna do it this time.
Gotta believe.
We have a new group. I just want to play through my character's story. It's gonna be good, you guys.
It's gonna be
What's your character?
Poppy? No, I'm just.
Yeah, I mean, it's just-
No. Like, think of Poppy and then think of the complete opposite of that. I play a human paladin named Saphira Blackburn, and I'm pretty much typical paladin. No nonsense. Definitely will cut your head off.
Definitely will not join a rebellion the first
like
chance
my
they
head.
get.
Just
Hard no.
Chris, what have you been up to?
So I've been on a pretty major reading binger. So not only did I finished Dune like first week of September, but I've also read the Witcher short stories. So The Last Wish and The Sword of Destiny. But also I read the Tangleroot Palace, which is by Marjorie Liu, who is the author of the Monstrous graphic novels. And that's why I picked up the book, because why not? And it was really good. But I've also started rewatching Yu Yu Hakusho because it's on Hulu, and it's like I could use a little nostalgia right now, and it kind of holds up. Not gonna lie, for its time, is definitely well animated. Comparative to the other kind of big animes of its time. But I also did watch Star Wars Visions. And yeah.
What's your favorite episode?
My favorite. So I have two characters. My favorite story-wise was what was it? The Village Bride. But But my favorite animation was from the twins because I don't know. I just love Studio Trigger though. Kind of my jam.
For me, I also watched Star Wars Visions. It'll surprise no one because Chris and I have same brain that one of my favorite episodes was The Village Bride. And I think it has probably my favorite lightsaber in all of Star Wars. So huge fan of that. And then I also kind of surprised took Wednesday and Thursday off of work. And so I did some extra streaming. I streamed some Magic the Gathering, Phantom Brigade. The developers of Phantom Brigade came and hung out in chat. So like that was awesome.
Nice.
So big shout out to Brace Yourself Games. And then Sunday, I streamed some Voice of Cards, which was shown at the Nintendo Direct that we had on Thursday. And it's a like turn-based RPG, but it's all built around cards. So the map is like cards, and as you move to a new card, it reveals stuff, things like that. All the characters and equipment are all cards. And then one of the premises is that it's actually basically a game of D&D. So instead of having every character voice acted, there's a narrator, and he's the one kind of telling you the story. And so it's kind of interesting in that regard. The demo took about an hour, and so I'm definitely interested in what it's going to be since it's only like a $30 game. I think if it was a $60 game, I would be much less interested. But yeah, so it was a very interesting and very fun little turn-based RPG. And so yeah. So with that, I guess let's go ahead and get into our news topics for this week. And before we get into that, if you're hanging out with us in chat and you have any questions for Darrin or Eric about their book, Fantastic 42, feel free to post them. And we'll get to those later on in our conversation. And so, Darrin, I don't know, do you have anything for us?
No, I'll pass.
Okay.
I'll maybe jump in later if something comes to me.
Oh, yeah. And feel free to hop in as we go, or anything comes up. Then we'll go to Eric.
All right. So I think it was Thursday night. I got on Instagram, and right at the top popped up a post from Amanda Tapping. If you don't know about her, you probably have not watched Stargate SG-1. And if you've not, then shame on you, because it is an amazing show, my favorite TV show ever.
I have to say, I was very pleased
Sam
when
Carter.
I saw you put this on there. I was very pleased. I
Yes.
love Stargate, and I vouch for it constantly.
Yay. Today at school, they had Meme Monday for Spirit Week. And so I taped a thing or pinned a thing to my shirt that said, Stargate is better than Star Wars and Star Trek. Argue with me. But yeah, she had an announcement. The companion app, which is a new app for all sorts of material from creators for fans, is enabling her and Michael Shanks, who played Daniel Jackson, and David Hewlett, who played Rodney McKay, to all do a reading of a new Stargate script that is written by an artificial intelligence. And it's going to be in November. I'm a little bit sad because I think that weekend I'm going to be at a youth conference running lights and repping Nerd Chapel all in the same weekend. But I'm very excited for that to come out. So I'll probably catch it on YouTube later. And I'm not sure yet if I want to get the app in order to watch it in real time anyway, because it's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Or for me, it seems like it. But that was super exciting because we haven't had new Stargate aside from the little web series that kind of turned into a short movie for Prime in 10 years. And I wasn't a huge fan of the universe. I liked some of what they were doing, but it just didn't gel with me. And I didn't think it really gelled with Stargate as a whole. But I mean, we're finally getting something new for Stargate, and hopefully this will push some gears. And I know Brad Wright has been trying to look at some ideas and look at the possibility possibility of getting it going again with some sort of new Stargate series. So I'm really excited for the possibilities. Plus, who knows what kind of weird, quirky things the artificial intelligence will put in there.
That's how they get
So,
you.
Yeah. I'm very excited for it. I mean, like I said, I vouch for the whole universe very frequently because
yeah,
it doesn't get enough love.
it doesn't. It has a cult following and a very devoted following, but it just isn't as known the way that Star Trek and Star Wars is. It's weird. So, and there was a Stargate at Gen Con because they had the new tabletop role playing game there. So I got a picture in front of the Stargate at Gen Con.
Watched a chunk of Stargate growing up. My dad kind of just loved everything sci-fi, and so it was one of those that he and I would watch it a lot. I think we watched through most of Atlantis, so a lot of SG-1, and then watched through a good chunk of Atlantis.
Both of those were very good.
Yeah.
And SG-1 in particular was very not formidable, but very much a part of my formation of my science fiction experience,
Mm-hmm.
and really helped me realize I'm a sci-fi fan and really dig into sci-fi. So.
Emma, what do you got for us?
So I posted this in the Discord earlier, but I figured it should also receive an honorable mention via the episode. That we got a trailer and some sneak peek stuff for The Witcher season 2. Yesterday, today. We got it today, this morning. So we got a 3-minute trailer plus a couple of like extra pictures, plus a scene, like a first look clip or two, or maybe 3. I think it's 2, and it's very exciting. We get to see more of Theory and Yennefer and just a bunch of great characters, and I'm looking very much forward to it coming out.
Yeah.
Alongside all of that, we also got a confirmation of season 3.
Mm-hmm. Which makes
That's
me happy.
A very important,
Also
honorable mention.
Very big piece of Witcher news.
Which I forgot. But yeah, so we already know we're getting season 3, which is great. So, I mean, that's kind of a given because it's such a popular series that's been doing really well.
It's
but
Netflix.
Also,
it's not a given.
It's well,
it can end at literally any time.
That's what I was gonna say. Was like, it's nice to know for sure because it is Netflix. Yeah. So like, I'm just very excited for this to like happen because it's like a new level of fantasy, at least in my world. So.
Darrin or Eric, do y'all have any experience with The Witcher?
No, not really. I tried to watch the show on Netflix and just didn't feel comfortable with all the nudity. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to skip this one.
Yeah.
That's totally fine too.
Yeah. I know personally, I'm extremely excited to see where they go with this. Especially after the weird time stuff in season 1 tripped up a lot of people. I'm excited that now presumably all of our main characters are in the same timeline. So
I have a feeling that was probably a very good learning point for the crew, or at least the writers, of like, it could have been made more clear, but
yeah, I think it's a really cool idea. Like, because you're telling these stories with similar themes that happen at different points in these people's lives, but it was very confusing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what we get, and of course, getting to see them wreck some weird monsters. So,
You guys watch the animated movie?
we did.
Yes.
Okay, good.
The first time I've watched something anime from start to finish without like just completely stepping away from it for a while.
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
And if you're someone that's tried to watch Witcher and the time stuff messed you up, Deanna puts it's very helpful to have subtitles on. And so it helps a lot with people's names and like recognizing events if you can like see them. And so, Shanine, what do you got?
Okay, very big, exciting news. Doctor Who announced their next showrunner after Chris Chibnall leaves, and Russell T Davies is returning.
Yay! I'm
Yay!
excited for that. Yeah.
Clearly very pleased about that.
Yes.
Yes, very exciting. He was the one who relaunched New Who in
Mhm.
2005.
So good. So
and
good.
Yes.
he was the showrunner until 2009, and he's going to be back in 2023 to celebrate the 60th anniversary. So,
Which is very exciting.
Mhm.
Yeah. So to borrow from another British franchise, and the peasants rejoiced.
Yes. So 2009. So that's the end of David Tennant's run. Is
Mhm.
that when?
He and Tennant left at the same time.
Okay.
It's typically been this tradition that actors, at least with New Who, do 3 seasons and they come in and leave with a showrunner. Like it's almost like a showrunner lead actor duo.
Mhm.
I'm very excited for this. Like that news just made my entire day.
That was very exciting.
I have not been a fan of Chibnall. He's made some very questionable choices.
yeah. After the way Chibnall's seasons went, I'm very excited to like get to go back to the roots.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have a lot of faith in Russell T Davies and his capability to smooth some wrinkles and settle some ruffled feathers.
For some reason, Emma, when you started saying that, I just got the Will Ferrell from Anchorman of "I'm stuck in a glass case of emotion." I don't know why that was just like in my head where I went as you started talking, but that was for some reason where I was.
But
yeah,
I definitely think he can repair some of the issues that Chibnall has created. So, I mean, if he can do anything, he can revive a 50-year-old science fiction show and make it a big deal. Like, he can fix some issues that someone started that were not very good choices.
This is true.
Mm-hmm. As someone who's more of like a I don't want to say I'm not a fan because I am, but like as someone who doesn't keep up with it, definitely hearing that like he's the one that brought through like David Tennant and stuff like that definitely makes me very excited for what this, because that was my first thing when I saw this. Like I just didn't have the name recognition of being like or like instantly knowing who that was.
There's not that work to face association. Yeah,
exactly. And like hearing through 2009 makes me very excited.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he like definitely he and Moffat were two of my favorites. Like their eras were like my favorite eras of Doctor Who, because they like did fun science fiction stuff, but in a very simple way that like enhanced the show. They didn't try to do these huge complex things that were like just did not work.
Yeah. Well, and Moffat especially, like he had a lot of things that were just, let's take something really goofy and fun that a kid would do and let's put it on here and let's find a way to make it work. Like dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Yeah.
What kid wouldn't want dinosaurs on a spaceship?
Two
And
of
he
the
did it,
coolest
and it was
combinations on the
wonderful.
planet. Yeah. Well, and even like they had some new stuff come out of those eras, like the Weeping Angels. Those were a completely
Yes.
new um, sort of enemy to the world of Doctor Who. Like, and they instantly became one of the fan favorites. Just like they came up with these good ideas too that were so strong and fit in with the themes that weren't overly complex. Like you it's easy to explain, oh, you have these enemies that are stone statues that when you blink or don't look at them, they will like come eat you. That's
Yes.
super easy to explain, and then you can base a whole story off of that super quickly.
Well,
And
and this,
Chibnall, go ahead.
especially with that first episode, how often is it that a show does an episode almost entirely without the main lead role that comes across as well done as that one
Well,
was?
here's the fun fact about that first episode. That the only reason that episode they created the Weeping Angels and that episode exists was because for that season they had a contract. This will be my one side thing, where like for whatever reason, David Tennant and whoever the actress is for Martha couldn't, like, they had to take vacation time, so they had like 2 episodes, 1 or 2 episodes where they like couldn't be on screen for most of the episodes, so they had to write these 1 or 2 episodes where they had to have another main character. So they came up with the Weeping Angels of like the main characters only have a short amount of screen time, and so they centered it on the journalist, and it was completely meant to be a one-off, but the enemies became so loved that like they brought them back. But it was all because of this contract deal that like, and I just find that cool that those came out of a contract deal that like they didn't mean for it to go big, but it did.
In chat, Travis says The Silence, which is another great set of characters and episodes. I'm a huge fan of that one. That arc. So, Chris, what do you got for us?
So also out of Netflix news, we did get the kind of first glimpse where, granted, it's not a full trailer or anything, but it's like the opening sequence for the live action Cowboy Bebop show, with John Cho as Spike Spiegel and Mustafa Shakir as Jet Black and Daniel Pineda as Faye Valentine. And you know, I'm usually skeptical of live action adaptations of anime, but this made me a little more excited for this one. It feels a little cheesy because it's like a direct pull from the anime for the opening sequence, but that's also what made me love it. And it feels like it's hitting all the right notes so far. Granted, we won't know more until we see a full trailer, but it is cool to know that the original composer for the series, Yoko Kanno, is on board with this. So we'll see in a month and a half now. Comes out, launches this November, right? Yeah. And so I'm really excited for that. And other news, kind of something I've been following, is the Activision Blizzard lawsuit. They did strike a deal with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission for $18 million. They are required to upgrade their training and reporting procedures, following the sexual harassment and discrimination policies that were kind of in place. And it'll be interesting following that farther, but hopefully that does repair some of the damage that, or begins to, and kind of changes the company culture into something a little more positive. Especially following Blizzard for as long as I have, it'll be good to hopefully we don't see any more of them in this kind of news. And maybe I can find a place with Diablo 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping that like we've already seen a lot of their leadership change. I'm hoping we continue to see them bring in some executives that will drive some good change at the company. Then I guess for our last discussion segment, we're going to take some time to look at the Fantastic 42, which I meant to have the subtitle brought up because I'm notoriously bad at remembering subtitles. But A Fellowship Facing Doom with Hope. There we go.
Yep.
And so, Darrin and Eric, what is the elevator pitch for Fantastic 42?
I'm interested in hearing Darrin's elevator pitch because I give my elevator pitch a lot, and I want to hear how Darrin will give the elevator pitch.
Yeah, you don't know what I'm gonna say. So, the Fantastic 42 is kind of the brainchild of Eric and Nathan, another friend of ours. They've already written 2 of these books, and instead of just doing the same thing for Eric and Nathan writing, they decided to pull in some other people. I'm one of them. And they said, what we want is we want you to take and do a character study. Take a character in pop fiction from somewhere, something that you like, whether it's like Eric and Nathan both like Doctor Who. I'm not a Doctor Who fan. Eric and Nathan are both big Trekkies. I'm not a Trekkie, but pull from what you like and do a character study. Well, I like Lord of the Rings, so I did one of those. And so it's finding a spiritual lesson or a picture of someone in the Bible, something that you can learn from some pop culture reference. And so that's basically what it is. The first subtitle was Finding Faith Through Fandom, and I think that continues. Like, I love the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's just a classic for a reason. And so I went and took the character of Jekyll and Hyde. Of course, he's the same person, but he's 2 people. And just showed how some people think that the Jekyll and Hyde syndrome is a good versus evil, and it's really not. Dr. Jekyll was just as evil as Mr. Hyde was, and he was completely sinful, and he created this other character because he was having evil desires, and he didn't want the evil things that he would be doing associated with his good name. He wanted to be a good, upstanding doctor and be well known in the community for all of his charity, but he also wanted to do these other things. So that's why he created Hyde in the first place. And so I get into this character study and how we really all are, we're not divided good half and bad half. We all have this dark side to us. We all have these desires that we want to create an outlet, but we don't want other people to see because we would be ashamed. And so, anyway, Eric, go ahead and give the real elevator pitch.
Well, it's not too different from what you said. The Fantastic 42 is the 3rd book in the 42 series, a series of Christian devotionals written for fans of science fiction, superheroes, anime, any kind of nerdy geeky thing. And it's a collection of character studies. Nate was working on his master's degree, and so he was a little bit too busy to write half of a book. Plus, I felt that having a character studies rather than a more of a curriculum-based thing would be an easy way to bring in other writers, and would be something different than our other 2 books. So it wouldn't be an exact replica of what we had done before. So we invited other writers. We said, here's a few guidelines we want you to use. Pick characters that you love, find the biblical themes in them, and have some fun expounding on that. Let's have this be a fun devotional that still handles significant Bible issues without feeling like you've been slammed, but at the same time helping you work through some things. And So yeah, I like to do things that are friendly toward nerd culture and still point people to Jesus, because nerds have too many bad experiences with religious
Mhm.
people. Most conventions they see someone standing on a soapbox yelling and screaming at you about what you like, and we wanted to say, hey, we're Christians who also like the same hobbies you do, and here's what we thought as we wrote about it.
And y'all kind of hit on my next question as y'all were going through that. But what were some of your goals and inspirations as y'all were writing the Fantastic 42?
So personally, I wanted to make sure I used some franchises or some things we had not used in the other two books. So I've got two characters here based on 1950 science fiction movies. Klaatu from The Day the Earth Stood Still, and Dr. Morbius from The Forbidden Planet. And I also wanted to just help people take steps toward Jesus and take steps with scripture in a way that would be fun, that would take what they already enjoy and use something they enjoy to help them work through life issues.
Yeah, my goal was to show people Christ. I love painting a picture of Christ, and I think you can see him in a lot of different things. And so you could probably see that in my Darkwing Duck, which may sound really weird, but yes, I did a devotional on Darkwing Duck. Let's get dangerous. So I want to show people Christ and what a great Savior he is.
And then of the devos that y'all worked on, what was the favorite one, if you had to pick?
Of the ones we each wrote?
Yeah, specifically for you, the ones you worked on.
Okay.
What was, if you had to pick a favorite, which one would it be?
That's a hard thing to do. I think one of my favorites is definitely Klaatu from The Day the Earth Stood Still. Klaatu is a character who comes to Earth, and he's the first alien that's proven to come visit Earth. And I'm specifically working with the 1950s version, the original, not the reboot with Keanu Reeves that was not even close to the original. And we just kind of asked the question of, so how does Klaatu's mission compare with Jesus' mission? And there are some interesting similarities. Klaatu decided to go out and meet normal people. Jesus went out and he fed normal people. He healed normal people. He interacted with sinners. He didn't come just to sit in a comfy place, and Klaatu didn't either. He had a mission and an objective, and he wanted to let that be known. And Klaatu was shot and killed for his objective. Jesus was not shot, but he was crucified for his objective. And so just this understanding that Jesus came on a mission for us, just as Klaatu came on a mission to extend a hand of welcoming to Earth, Jesus came to extend a hand of welcoming to us, and to take some pretty difficult things on himself for us.
So for me, that's kind of tough because, like Strongbed says, my emails are like my children. I love them all. So, but there's one that kind of stood out because Nathan and I, the other, progenitor brainchild of this whole thing, he's the one that came up with the idea of the 42. Yeah, Nathan Marchand. He and I were at Gen Con, what was that, 2019, I think? And we were just in a discussion about, well, they say the book is always better, but he says, I've got a couple exceptions to that. And so he's going through his list. Yeah, I got 3 exceptions to the book is always better. There are a couple of exceptions where he thinks the movie's better. And one of them was Ready Player One. He thinks that the movie is better than the book. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, it's your opinion. And then he says The Princess Bride, and I'm like, I'm about ready to get up. And he says, well, they're equals. You can't put one above the other. And I'm like, okay. Because I read the book. And see, for a long time, I couldn't understand how the book could be better. But when I read the book, The Princess Bride, I'm like, this is awesome. I believe that the book is better than the movie. There's so much in there. You know, there's the background story of Domingo Montoya, how he slaved for a year to make the perfect sword. And there, you know, there's the zoo of death instead of the pit of despair. There's just so much in there. And so I'm like, no, I think the book is better. So I use that. I started off my Princess Bride devotional saying, I'm having a disagreement with Nathan and I need your help. And I talked about our disagreement because most people don't know about Wesley's prayer to the Lord of permanent affection. Because the pill, the resurrection pill that Miracle Max gives him, is only supposed to last an hour. Well, what's going to happen after the hour? Well, he doesn't know. Oh, but guess what? Miracle Max added the wrong amount of one ingredient, and the resurrection pill is only going to last for 40 minutes. So just as Wesley is challenging Prince Humperdinck to the pain, the 40 minutes is done, and Wesley crumples over. And Prince Humperdinck sees a moment of weakness, and he's about ready to get back up, and suddenly Wesley miraculously has strength and says, to the pain! And Prince Humperdinck is a coward, of course, and he sits back down. Well, then later, as they're riding away on horseback, Buttercup says, what happened back there? And Wesley says, well, I guess I was dying again, but I made a petition to the Lord of permanent affection that I would have strength to live the day. Clearly, the answer came in the affirmative. So the whole happily ever after came because Wesley offered up a prayer there in his moment of need. And so I make the connection that, you know, Wesley was a great hero. He did some great feats, but he was at the end of himself. And he basically called out to the Lord and asked for deliverance. And so I talk about how sometimes we come to the end of ourselves and we need to cry out to God for deliverance. And I talk about Samson and how he slew 1,000 Philistine warriors. But after that, he was dying of thirst. He was in the middle of nowhere. He had come to the end of himself and he cried out to God for, you know, are you going to let me die of thirst out here, God? And God made a river in the middle of the desert and did a miracle for him. So that might be my favorite one.
It's a good choice.
And then, Eric, I think you added this question. What was the hardest Devo to write?
I had, I think a couple of hard ones. I did one based on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which ended up being a look at the moment when she was really frustrated and feeling like she was having to give up a lot of what she wanted, and ended up finding out that everyone in the school had seen that she was the one person that they could depend on when everything got weird. And so for all of her times of giving up what she wanted in order to fight all these vampires and other evil things, she was protecting people and people realized it. And what she was doing was having an effect. It was leading to the point where their graduating class had the smallest mortality rate in the history of the school. And so I just look at that and say, you know, you may feel like your life is really, really sucky right now. And you're not getting anything that you want, but God will use the moments when you say, I'm going to do what I need to do, even when it's not fun. And he will do things that you cannot imagine with that. And I had another devotional.
No, Eric, on that one, you shared some very personal things at the end of that devotion too. You were very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Eric shared a very rough time in his life and how he could really identify with that. So that was a really good devotional.
Thanks. Yeah, as a substitute teacher, you have times when the kids aren't that great. And I shared about one of those times and how out of one of my worst days of subbing ever, I found a whole range of support I didn't know I had. Students especially juniors and seniors, are coming out of the woodwork to send me Facebook messages and just say, "Hey, Mr. Anderson, we want you to keep coming back. One could bake me cookies." And we did this fun project at the school where just a very open and honest project where you got a picture of yourself with a chalkboard. It's called the Chalkboard Project. And you put on there the things, a word that's really hard for you. It could be a word someone called you. And a lot of ladies put on there's a word that starts with a B. About 30 of the pictures around the school were women holding the B word as their word. And, you know, my word was lonely. And I can show you guys, this is, so the thing was later in, after taking the pictures and posting them, they put paper over your word and people got to write their little thoughts about you to encourage you. And so mine is just filled with notes from kids encouraging me. But yeah, I didn't know I had all that support. I was just a substitute teacher, you know? And but the other one that I think was really hard was Sinbad the Sailor. So I did it not based on the movies, but based on a translation I found online of the original stories from 1001 Arabian Nights. And just really put a lot of effort into it because I wanted it to be really good. He was one of our characters. We purposely had everyone choose one character from the Unmatched game series just as a way to connect with tabletop gamers. And he was the one I chose, and I wanted it to be good. And so I put a lot of blood and sweat into it. And just looking at the whole question of why is that other guy more victorious than I am? Why does the other guy have things better than I do? Because in the original story, it's talking about a guy who meets Sinbad, who feels like his life is terrible and doesn't understand why does Sinbad have all these riches and all these opportunities, and he gets to sit and listen to Sinbad talk about the dangers he faced and the horrors that he experienced. And just kind of encourage people, just keep plugging away. Find that one thing a day to do toward your goal, and do at least one thing a day and really pursue this. So those were kind of the two that I really feel like I had to put the hardest and the most work into. Orange Mailman?
Yeah.
Probably the Ragnarok, the Oblivion Ragnarok one. That went over the word limit, but Nathan and Eric were very gracious and allowed me to go a little bit longer. I did a parallel between Ragnarok out of Norse mythology and the Thor Ragnarok movie, and how that is a parallel of the end of the age that's coming. And I pulled out of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale, the Marsh King, I believe, and a description of Ragnarok, how it's not just the destruction, but it's also the birth of a new world. And then there's this scene in Ragnarok, Thor Ragnarok, where Thor realizes that Asgard has to be destroyed in order for the true Asgard to be preserved. And there's this idea of judgment is coming on the world, and in order for God to make a new earth, a perfect earth where there's no sin and everything, well, guess what? That means this earth has to be destroyed. It's imperfect. We're at war with each other. We're killing each other. So there has to be a new beginning. But that one was really difficult, and Nathan was very helpful in the edits and stuff and correcting me on some Norse mythology because I'm not the expert in that area. I probably bit off more than I could chew, but anyway, that was a hard one to write.
Other hosts, y'all got any questions?
Darrin mentioned he's a geek about peanut butter. Yeah, is that so? What is your preference on peanut butter?
Jif Creamy, why?
Oh man.
but I'll eat all kinds of peanut butter, all kinds of peanut butter dessert. I'm not picky. I'm not a snob. At one point I probably had like 4 or 5 different kinds of peanut butter in my, and I'll just pick out, like I had an all natural peanut butter, absolutely no sugar added. The only ingredient was peanuts, period. And that was good. And then I have this Amish peanut butter, which somebody bought for me. Well, when people find out that you like peanut butter, well, they suddenly start buying you peanut butter, and then you never have to buy it. There's this Amish peanut butter, and
That's
it's
a big
got maple
plus.
syrup and yeah, maple syrup and marshmallows whipped in it. It's almost too sweet to put on bread, and so I'm a mailman too, and so I do this Christmas countdown for the businesses I walk in. I say, it's only 80 days until Christmas. It's only 70 days until Christmas. It's only 60 days until Christmas. And people are like, oh, you're so funny, blah, 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 blah. Well, then the day after Christmas, I said something like 30 days until National Peanut Butter Day or whatever it was, 28 days until National Peanut Butter Day. And they're like, what? Is that a thing? Yeah, it's a thing. Don't you celebrate National Peanut Butter Day? And they're like, no, when is it? I'm like, January 24th. Come on, get with the program. And they're like, wow, I should celebrate. Yeah, you should celebrate. Okay. And so then
starting a trend
on National Peanut Butter Day, this is what those businesses do.
They give you peanut butter?
They give you peanut butter desserts. I'm like, hey, I wasn't really doing this for the free peanut butter desserts, but they're like, hey, we know you love peanut butter. Here's a Reese's or something, And so it just gets to be a fun way to talk to people on my route and to share my love for peanut butter. So
that's awesome.
And tonight I had the peanut butter cup at Grand Traverse Pie Company. It was very yummy.
They got some good stuff. Yep.
I guess the last question we have then is where can listeners find the Fantastic 42 if they would like to learn more?
Well, there's a couple ways. One is Amazon. So just go to Amazon, think in the Fantastic 42, and it's right on there for you to order. We do not have an ebook version ready yet. Hopefully it will come soon, but for right now we just have the good old paperback, because who doesn't want the real paper anyway? The other thing is, if you find me or Nathan Marchand or even Scott Bales at a convention, we will oftentimes have copies with us. So I'm going to be at FiascoCon in Michigan near Detroit this weekend, and in a couple of weeks I'll be at Wizard World Chicago, and I'm really excited about that. It'll be my first time at such a big show in the Chicago area. So but yeah, Amazon, if you're not anywhere near where we are, Amazon is your best bet.
And listeners, will put a link in the show notes, so
yes,
y'all can check that out. And then announcements before we get into our top 3. Who all is streaming this week?
I'm undecided.
Janine, nervous smile.
To be determined.
Yeah, I'll be streaming tomorrow. Some more King's Quest.
I am almost entirely TBD at this point. This semester is entirely chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Chaos.
I should be on Sunday afternoon. Not 100% sure what it's going to be yet. I'm holding out for Metroid Dread, which comes out in 2 weeks. And so that's what it'll be in 2 weeks, but I have like a gap to fill and I don't know what to start. So here we are. It might be something just little, or who knows. And then our other big announcement, it is the end of the month, which means this Thursday is our book club on Dune. Here's where I would hold up my copy of Dune if I remembered to grab it from the other room.
Darren's got one.
And then, Darren's showing us up because he's prepared and knew exactly where his copy of Dune was too. So big props there. And so we'll be doing that Thursday night, 6:45 Mountain Time, back here on Twitch. And then that'll be on YouTube after the fact. And so let's go ahead and get into our top 3 fictional characters that have taught you spiritual lessons. Darrin, why don't you start us off?
Well, I'm panning to the crowd. I'm going to say Aragorn. Eric did a cosplay as Aragorn at Gen Con too. So, but Aragorn is such a unique character in Lord of the Rings, and I did a devotional on him, but the devotional was more on his identity as the King of the Dead, because he goes into the realm of the dead, and instead of the dead impeding him, the dead rise up and follow him. It the in the book, it gets into it a little bit more, that the whole land is just in terror. No, the King of the Dead has come upon us. So one of the titles of Aragorn is the King of the Dead. And it's just the devotion that I wrote was on the parallel of Christ, and how Christ, when he died, he went into the realm of the dead, and instead of the dead impeding him, they rose up and followed him. It said that they ascended up on high with Christ, if you read over in Ephesians. And it says in Romans 14 that this is why Christ died, that he might be Lord of the dead. One of the titles of Christ is the Lord of the Dead, and a lot of people don't realize that. And so I make the parallel between Aragorn being the King of the Dead and Jesus being the Lord of the Dead. But he's such a fascinating character. He comes to Gondor. He has, a lot of people have helped rescue Gondor, Gandalf, Theoden, and everybody. But he has rescued Gondor, and he's the rightful king, but he waits outside. If you read the book, he doesn't go in before they invite him in. He waits outside, and he spends the night outside the city. Why wouldn't he go in? Oh, but wait, he does go in. He sneaks in at night, and he heals people. He heals Eowyn and Faramir. And the Athelas is another parallel that I find is amazing. It's Kingsfoil, but yet, what's her name? Oh, the lady, Ioreth. Ioreth says, it is always said that the king would be known, that the hands of the king are healing hands. And so the king will always be known if he heals. And he wants Athelas. Well, it's Kingsfoil. Well, yeah, okay, Kingsfoil, but I never saw anything royal about it, Ioreth says. Well, except when it's bruised. It produces a very sweet smell when it's bruised, or when the dry leaves are crushed. Then it produces a sweet smell. And so there's that parallel that this is this plain looking plant, but it's called Kingsfoil, it's royal, and there's healing power in it when it's bruised or crushed. And so Aragorn, with being the healing and a lot of the parallels, and so the devotion in the book, I just decided that he would be my number one there.
Eric, what about you?
Well, 3, oh man. One of the ones that I've learned a lot from is Saint Walker. Saint Walker comes to us from the DC side of things. He is a Blue Lantern. He's the first and the original Blue Lantern. They are similar to the Green Lanterns. The Green Lanterns power their rings through willpower, but the Blue Lanterns power their rings through hope. And it's very intriguing because before he became a Blue Lantern, he had this very hard pilgrimage. While their planet was basically dying, he made this pilgrimage to a mountain because there was a prophecy that a leader would rise on that mountain to save their people. And so he makes this trek, and his family dies along the trek. Over and over, he loses family member after family member. And at one point he's talking with the leader of the Rage Lanterns, who powered their rings through rage, and he says, I had rage just like you, and yet I still found hope. And he kind of paints this picture that hope is not always about feeling good, that it doesn't always feel good. And sometimes it's just pushing on and kind of moving over toward the grit of just pushing with grit. Sometimes hope is just pushing through things. And he always says, all will be well. And just reaffirms it. It's going to get better. It will. It may not feel it now. It may not be great now, but it will get better. And so just I feel like I just learned so much about hope from him, and he is one of the characters that I write about in the Fantastic 42 that you can enjoy. Uh, and I learned a lot from Luke Skywalker growing up. I didn't put him in this book because we've had a lot of Star Wars in it, and we wanted to save the Star Wars more for other side. So you'll see a couple of entries from The Mandalorian in here. But Luke Skywalker was fairly inspirational because he was coming into this new role and bringing this new hope to people, and stepping into this huge battle between two different sides that was so easy to get lost in. And he just stepped in it and kept going and did not turn to the dark side. Although if you read the books, he does there. So there's that difference. The Legends books, at least. But so he was someone that I learned a lot from. And
No, I'll hold you on that third one.
Huh?
I'll hold you on the third one. We'll come back. We'll loop around.
Okay.
And so just so we can kind of tease it out a little bit. Emma, what about you?
My first one is Lucy from Narnia, because those are books that I grew up with, and she's one that has always stood out to me, both as a character from Narnia and for this question. She's always been my favorite from the books and the movies, but in the context of this question, one of the big reasons she stood out to me is because she's a very almost like a saintly character of the four siblings in many ways, and she's always the last to give up and the first to forgive, and is always there for her siblings and just wanting to do the right thing. And she was a character that I looked up to as a kid in terms of like, I want to be that kind of person who's like just wants you to do the right thing and is there to help you do the right thing, and is like has such a strong faith in God. And I just sort of growing up kept going back to her as a figure I wanted to be like. So
Janine, what about you?
All right. Well, speaking of same brain, I have
I know.
Aslan. I wrote Aslan / Lucy, so I'll just talk about Aslan.
I figured we'd have some similarities.
Yeah. Maybe an obvious choice, but I don't know. It's one of the earliest memories I have of a fictional character and being like, whoa, like that's what God is like. The Horse and His Boy has always been one of my favorites from the Narnia series. Just the way that Aslan is there through it all, even when we don't know it or don't recognize him, but he's there through it all, especially when things are going badly. And yeah, I just love Aslan.
Chris, what about you?
My first is Kenshin Himura from Samurai X, or Rurouni Kenshin.
Yes.
Yes. Just because he and I have to put in that context that really to understand Kenshin's character, you do need both Samurai X, Trust and Betrayal, leading into Rurouni Kenshin, just because you get that struggle from his past, his previous life as an assassin, and also the pain he experienced through that from his early childhood, going into his training and becoming Batosai the Manslayer. But in Rurouni Kenshin, we just see this kind of joyous, kind of seeking redemption character that finds a lot of humor in his relationships with others. He finds builds on that trust in those relationships and seeks to protect them, and just kind of moves forward, and uh, uh, really seeking to kind of redeem himself, vowing to never kill, and even seeking redemption for other assassins that he encounters, kind of seeking to harm those around him too, and he still desires to see them redeemed as well. And I think that's just such a he's such an amazing character and one of my favorite characters of all time.
I told myself I was only going to pick one Avatar character. So I'm doing Korra. Um, so I love Korra's arc. So like Aang's arc is about this idea of like accepting who you are in the face of adversity. And Korra's arc is about knowing who you are and then accepting your place in the world because of that. And so Korra very much deals with this challenge of, and like literally the first time that we see her is her declaring that she is the Avatar, and knowing what that means and accepting that at an early age, and then having to fight through all of the struggles of the world that doesn't necessarily want her anymore, and then to the point that literally there's this Red Lotus that is out trying to kill her and end the Avatar cycle. And I really like that growth that we get for that character of kind of transitioning at that end of book 3 into book 4, where she has to accept that even though there are people in the world that don't want her to be there, she has a place, and there are people that have her back. Eric, kind of connecting back to a little bit of what you shared earlier. I think there's a little bit of that type of story in Korra's arc as well. And I really like that. I like that idea of accepting that you can make a difference, even when there's obstacles in the way. And so, so big shout outs to Korra. Darrin, we'll loop back around to you. Who's your number 2?
Yeah, I don't know how many of you are familiar with The Courageous Princess. This is not one that I've done a devotional on, but The Courageous Princess is a series by Rod Espinoza. It's kind of a graphic novel type of set of books, and very well written. Princess Mabel Rose is a princess, but she's not like the other princesses. She doesn't feel pretty. She's very clumsy, and she just
I've heard of this.
Oh,
Sorry.
you have?
Yeah.
But she it's a phenomenal series. I love fairy tales, and there are so many references to fairy tales. Her father is a descendant of Aladdin. Her mother is a descendant of Snow White and Prince Charming, and she just she gets kidnapped by a dragon, and at first she thinks, well, a prince is going to come to rescue me. And the dragon says, no prince will ever come to rescue you. You're ugly, blah, 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 blah. You know, no one wants you. And so she escapes the dragon's castle with her wits and everything. And she, it's just a whole series of adventures. It's just amazing what he does, bringing fairy tale characters into different things. You'll see references to Rapunzel, and one of the princes who there actually comes a band of 6 princes. One of them is the son of Medusa, and so he's got snakes for hair, and each one of the snakes can do a different thing: fear, stone, obey, and just so Rumpelstiltskin and Jack and the Beanstalk, all kinds of different fairy tales. But really, her strength is she's kind to people. She's generous. She makes friends with people. She remembers their name and calls them by her name on all of her adventures. And she's genuinely concerned about these people in these different kingdoms that she's going through. And her heart is, it's just like, why can't more heroes be like this rather than the tough guy, rather than the whatever? Why can't heroes be kind? Why can't heroes be generous? And it really touched me. Her character did. So I would invite you to get the the first book in it and just see if it's up your alley. I gave one copy to Eric. What do you think of it, Eric?
It was great. It was very good. I read a part of it to my youngest niece because I thought it was a good role model for her.
Yeah.
And it was good to see a girl shown in light of I can do my own work, and I can be amazing without having to be rescued. And to have them not even care about what does he have a boyfriend or anything like that. No, this is just her living her story and not having to be put into a romance, but just doing what she can to take care of herself and go on her own adventure.
Yeah. So anyway, The Courageous Princess, Princess Mabel Rose.
Emma, we'll jump over to you.
My next one is the Doctor, obviously.
Cool.
But here I'm getting specific with the 11th Doctor. And one quote in very specific that stands out to me from the 11th Doctor that goes along the lines of, I've never met someone in all of time and space who isn't important. And that just stands out to me, like, in the context of the Doctor, because he's obviously this guy who, like, has been everywhere, literally everywhere, in like 10th century Europe or whatever, like, and he sees the value in each and every individual person. Like, God made all of us uniquely, and to him we are valued people. And just, the Doctor makes this one little comment of, like, someone says, like, he's like, oh, who's that? Someone's like, oh, she's nobody important. And he goes, blimey, I've never met anyone in all of time and space who isn't important. He sees the value in each and every person and, like, treats everyone as such, and just sees and loves people as they are and how they come. And in many ways, like, we talk about Jesus feeding the hungry and dining with the taxpayers and all the people who are looked down upon in society. And here's the Doctor, sort of standing up for that idea that, like, there is never going to be anyone who's not important in this world. And world meaning both like the planet and, like, the universe. And that's just, like, something that is super valuable. Like, having a character who recognizes in their position that everyone's important. Like, that just embodies God in so many ways, because he sees each of us and our inner hearts and what we love, and he loves us for that.
Janine, what do you got?
Okay, so
Am I taking all of yours? I apologize.
the 12th Doctor.
Okay. God.
Got him.
Nice.
Yeah, just his relationship with Clara and the absolute extreme lengths that he would go to help her and to save her. Like, he's willing to sacrifice himself for her, and she's not even the best friend at times, and she really messes up, and he just loves her anyways, and I love it. I could talk about it a lot, but I'll hold myself back.
Chris, what do you got?
My next character is Ramza Beov from Final Fantasy Tactics. And that is because he starts off as kind of a naive character, as part royalty, but quickly has to learn that there are things happening in this world. There are injustices, but he always seeks to correct that. He's one of the few characters, or there's several in Tactics, and ultimately that's the side you're playing on. But they show a lot of integrity throughout their actions, and throughout the story of of the original Final Fantasy Tactics, as corruption within government, within the church, and even like additional conspiracies are revealed, they always still seek to do what is right and maintain that um, integrity in combating those parties. Um, and he's always been one of my favorite protagonists in the Final Fantasy series. Final Fantasy Tactics is one of my favorite games, and ultimately the team he assembles is also just a lot of fun. So,
So for me, I'm a big believer that sometimes some of the best teachers are the ones that teach you how not to do things or teach you what not to do. Um, I had done a lesson series back when I was a youth minister on the fruit of the spirit and characters that embodied those. And we did Samson for self-control. And so this one is kind of in that same vein. And so this is Ellie from The Last of Us. And I think the spiritual lesson that I get from Ellie's story is the idea of learning that you can't control everything and not everything is up to you. And so Ellie very much needs to avenge loss, and goes to great extents to basically ruining a good chunk of her life because of this drive. And I think that's a valuable lesson for me and for I think Christians in general, with the idea that we don't have to be the ones that solve every problem. We don't have to be the ones that fight every battle. There are some, especially when it comes to fighting for the less fortunate, fighting for those that don't have a voice, that we need to be better at standing up and fighting for. But there are other times where sometimes the best choice is to let go. And I think that's something that I saw as I played The Last of Us Part 2. And so doing our final round, if you're hanging out with us in chat, feel free to post your fictional characters that have taught you a spiritual lesson. You don't have to do 3, but any that you got. And so, Darrin, what is your number 3?
Charlie Brown. I did a devotional on Charlie Brown in the book, and I went back to his relationship with his father early in the strip. Charles Schultz showed how much Charlie Brown's father treated him with respect and loved him. And he was a barber, and Charlie Brown could go into his dad's barber shop anytime he wanted. And his dad never acted like he was an interruption or anything. And so I get into what makes Charlie Brown tick. Why does Charlie Brown never give up? Why does he come back and manage the baseball team that's never going to win a game? Why does he always try to kick the football and Lucy's going to pull it away? Why does he always fly the kite and he knows it's going to get eaten by the kite-eating tree every year? He never gives up. He never gives up. What is it? And there's this Father's Day strip that Schultz did where Violet is just bragging about her dad and just going on and on about all the great things her dad can do. And then Charlie Brown says, stop. Don't say anything else. Come with me. You see this here? This is my dad's barber shop. And he has to deal with a lot of crabby people all day long. But anytime I want to, I can walk in here and he'll give me a big smile. You want to know why? Because he likes me, that's why. And Violet just goes, Happy Father's Day, Charlie Brown, and walks away. See, she didn't know that her father liked her, but Charlie Brown did. And I just put that in there, that when you know your father loves you, there's a great strength that comes from that. And when we know our Heavenly Father loves us, we can walk tall, we can walk away from a fight. And so that's available in the book too. So Charlie Brown.
Eric, what about you?
Right. So I'm actually gonna go with a different one. I'm gonna go with Godzilla. And this actually relates to our last pick, to the new 42. Uh, so Godzilla was very much a terror creature. You know, you watch the very first movie, in the first 2 or 3 movies, he just stomps and stomps and destroys, and that's all he is. He's just a creature that destroys. And then they brought in this new monster called King Ghidorah. And King Ghidorah was so powerful that he was causing so much destruction that there was no way the earth could protect itself. So they get these twins, these tiny, wonderful twins, to go and approach Mothra for help. And Mothra says, I can't do it alone. I got to get Godzilla in. But Godzilla is a monster of terror. He's like Saul was before he started following Jesus, became Paul. He was a terrorist. And Mothra goes to Godzilla and Rodan and tries to convince them to stop fighting with each other and to band together to fight King Ghidorah. And at first it sounds like they're not going to do it. And then Mothra goes off on her own to fight this powerful 3-headed monster all by herself. And Godzilla says, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to actually step into this fight myself. And he has what I call the Saul DePaul change in his life, where he went from a monster of terror to a monster of protection. And he stopped terrorizing people and started protecting and starting seeing the needs around him, and became a very different character. From then on in the movies, you saw him much more as a protector, almost kind of a superhero, whereas before he was just the destroyer. And just this understanding that God can do that in our lives as well. He could come in and change us from being someone filled with lust to being someone filled with compassion, from being someone filled with anger to someone filled with peace. And we can have those Saul DePaul changes in our own lives.
Well said. Emma, what you got? What are you taking from Shanine?
I am almost guaranteed not to be taking this one from Shanine. Unless she thinks entirely like me, which would be odd. But I'm going on a similar vein as Darrin here. And it's more so an example of like God to me than like a lesson, but it's one that came to mind for this question. And it's Marlin from Finding Nemo, the dad, who, despite all of his deepest fears, leaves the reef to find his kidnapped son, and does everything in his power, despite his fear, to get his son back. Like, his son has literally, the last words from his son to him was, "I hate you, like, leave me alone." And then he watches his son get kidnapped, and he's like, "I'm gonna go rescue my son from these scary, terrifying people, despite the fact that I'm like terrified to leave the reef and all of this stuff." Like, that is a solid example of like, you know, Jesus leaving the flock to find the one lost sheep. Of course, Jesus doesn't have these deep fears within him, but like, and it's just like this great example to me of like God's unrelenting and unconditional love for us, and the lengths that he'll go to, despite the evil in the world, to get us back. And like, he'll just never give up on us. And that's just an example of a character to me that mirrors that very clearly, but in a human way of, here's an example of like, your fears aren't going to hold you back if you don't let them. Like, if you let them, they will hold you back. But if you overcome them, you can achieve great things.
Is yours Dory?
Gonna say so Dory. It's not. Mal and Shepherd Book from Firefly.
Very good.
Now you're gonna take someone from someone else.
It had to happen. I'm not sorry.
I was not expecting this, Shanine. curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal.
She gets to pull it on someone else now. It's okay. I've pulled it on her too many times.
We can share. I just love both of their journeys of faith throughout the show. Like Mal has become so embittered towards God and the idea of faith. But seeing that example of faith in Book through the whole thing, he starts to soften up to him again. And I don't know. I think there's hope for Mal in the future. And then Shepherd Book, he's lovely and wonderful. And I think it's just interesting watching how he holds on to his faith, but has to learn how it works in this context of being on a slightly sketchy ship, which with some slightly sketchy people, and
Slightly.
just slightly. And yeah, just figuring out how faith still works. And I think it's a really great picture of how faith isn't always easy and it's not always linear, but it's good.
Very good.
Chris, what else you got?
I guess we're just going with a solid default because Mal and specifically his relationship with Book was my final one. But I guess we'll go with Uncle Iroh.
Yes.
Because he teaches all the best spiritual lessons in
Good
the
fallback.
Avatarverse. He also teaches lessons in Korra, which is so crazy. But his foresight and just thoughtfulness and his approach in loving his nephew for one, and really seeking out that redemption for Zuko was such a big part of the series for one. But like just seeing his interactions and when Zuko returns to him or when Zuko leaves to go help the Avatar and everything, and kind of he takes on so much blame in himself too, like when he feels that Zuko is lost, and kind of taking on that fatherly role even after he lost his own child. It was just a very beautiful relationship, and he just offered even his interactions with Toph and everything. He was just such a amazing character, and will always be kind of my go-to guru for for these types of questions. So, Uncle Iroh.
And for mine, Uncle Iroh, maybe best uncle, but my pick is best mom, and that's Molly Weasley. And so who's another I feel like standbys for this list or this types of list where I love the way that she brings Harry into the fold and treats him so kindly as this kid that has had a very rough first 11 years of his life. And Molly is so accepting and getting to see that relationship with his parents and that like her care for him. And I love the scenes of like Harry getting the Christmas sweaters and things like that. And just how wholeheartedly Molly is willing to fight for this kid who's not hers. But that compassion towards someone, I think is amazing. And then kind of similarly that one of the things I love about Molly is that she's not a pushover. Like she's very much willing to stand up for what she believes in, and very much opposes the darkness in the world. And so I think that there's a great lesson there as well, in doing what we can to push back darkness. So that is our top three from chat. Deanna says her top 3 are Dumbledore, the Force / Jedi / Star Wars, and then Mufasa.
Ooh, say it again.
Remember who you are. And so, listeners, you can let us know who your top 3 is at any of our social media or down in the comments section. But before we get to our outro, Eric and Darrin, thank y'all so much for being with us this week. It's been great having y'all on. Where can people find you if they want to connect?
I'm on the Orange Mailman. I've got a blog. You can just do a search for the Orange Mailman. It's been a little dormant lately, but I just finished teaching a series of Sunday school lessons on harnessing the power of the tongue for the glory of God. And so I'm going to be starting to post those up there.
Yeah, and he's a good blogger. He has a lot of good stuff on his blog. And that's it, Darren. You don't have a Facebook page for that or a IG or anything, do you?
Oh, just my blog mainly.
Okay. So you can catch me. One place would be my website, nerdchapel.com. And always look for this logo for Nerd Chapel stuff. You can also find me on YouTube. The easiest way on YouTube is just to search Nerd Chapel. That's the simplest way there. On Instagram, I'm nerd_chapel, and facebook.com/nerdchapel. So it's been great being with you guys tonight, and sorry for my mix-up of jumping the gun with my second character too early.
No problem at all. Happy to have y'all. And so, listeners, you can always find us as One Geek 411 on our social medias. You can join our Discord server if you want to chat between shows, or shoot us an email at 1stgeek411@gmail.com. You can watch live on twitch.tv/1geek411, like for book club this Thursday. And then you can also find the videos over on our YouTube, or we'll have links to Darrin and Eric's social medias and blogs, so you can find them there. And then you can rate and subscribe wherever it is that you listen to podcasts, and check out our website, onegeek411.com. And then if you want to connect with us, you can also find that through our personal social media. Mine is Humar Whittle.
Mine is I am not prepared with an I on all platforms.
I'm the Hoot and Howl on Twitter and Hoot and Howl Tales, TALES, on Instagram.
And I'm not so foreign.
And it's been a great week.
Wash your hands.
Read a book.
Pick your trouble carefully.
Have fun and stay busy.